The alien vessel crashed onto the barren surface of the planet, its wreckage strewn across the rocky landscape like the remnants of a broken dream. Inside the crew, a fierce and proud race known as the Xanthari lay lifeless. Their bodies, once the epitome of strength and endurance, were now mangled and broken. Among them was the leader, Strix, a warlord whose name was spoken with fear and respect across galaxies. But now, all that remained was a mere shell of the being that once struck terror into the hearts of countless civilizations. Strix had been the most feared commander in the galaxy, a ruthless conqueror who led the Xanthari with an iron fist. Their species had destroyed entire worlds, leaving no trace of the civilizations they obliterated. They had come for Earth, the cradle of humanity, with the intent to subjugate and enslave its people, but the Xanthari were unprepared for what they encountered. For a long time, humanity had been underestimated by the universe. Their technology was primitive compared to the great empires of the cosmos, and their people were seen as nothing more than insects in the grand scheme of things. But the Xanthari made a fatal mistake by underestimating the strength of the human spirit. The battle had been fierce. The Xanthari ship, brimming with advanced weaponry and cutting-edge technology, had been overwhelmed by the sheer will and ingenuity of Earth's defenders. It wasn't the firepower of their weapons that turned the tide, nor the advanced tactics they employed. It was something far more primitive yet infinitely more powerful. Humanity's will to survive. The Xanthari had learned the hard way that humans, when pushed to the brink, could rise with a ferocity that no alien race could comprehend. They were wounded, outnumbered, and outgunned, but they fought with everything they had, and in the end, they emerged victorious. The Xanthari fleet was decimated, but the victory came at a terrible cost. Many lives were lost on Earth, and the Xanthari warship lay in ruins on an uninhabited world. The remaining survivors, including Strix, had been left behind, wounded and stranded on a hostile planet, with no hope of rescue. As Strix struggled to regain consciousness, he could feel the weight of his injuries. His limbs were broken, his armor shattered, and his vision blurred with pain. The Xanthari were known for their resilience, but even they could only endure so much. He was dying. The galaxy was moving on without him, and the pride he once held so dearly was slipping away, leaving only a bitter emptiness. But then the sound of engines filled the air. At first, Strix thought it was a hallucination, a trick of his fading mind, but the sound grew louder, and through the haze of his vision, he saw a figure approach. It was a human. The human wore a simple helmet and armor, his face obscured, but there was no mistaking the symbol on his chest, the emblem of the Earth Defense Forces. Strix knew then that his fate had changed. These humans were not content with merely defending their world, they had come to conquer him. As the human approached, Strix tried to move, to raise his weapon and resist, but his body refused to obey. His wounds were too great, his strength too depleted. The human knelt beside him, assessing the situation with a level of calmness that was both unnerving and impressive. "You're lucky we found you," the human said, his voice clear and resolute. "We don't usually rescue enemies, but you're in bad shape. You're lucky you're still alive." Strix could only stare in disbelief. How could this weak, insignificant creature show such arrogance? The humans had no right to mock him. He was a warrior, a conqueror, a force that had crushed entire civilizations, and yet here he was broken and vulnerable, at the mercy of those he had once fought beneath him. The human didn't wait for a response. Instead, he began tending to Strix's wounds with surprising efficiency, using advanced medical tools that Strix had never seen before. The human's actions were methodical, precise, and filled with an almost unnerving sense of purpose. It was clear that the Earth Defense Forces were not just skilled in combat, they were also masters of survival. As the human worked, he spoke again, his tone casual but filled with an underlying authority. "The Xanthari aren't exactly a peaceful bunch, are they? I've read your files. You destroyed countless worlds, but you couldn't take Earth. You couldn't break us. And now you're here, alone and broken, with no way to escape. It must sting, doesn't it?" Strix wanted to scream, to tear this insolent creature apart, but he lacked the strength. Instead, he seethed in silence, watching as the human continued to work. For all his arrogance, There was something else in the human's eyes, a kind of quiet, resolute compassion that confused Strix. You may have been a great warlord once, the human continued, but in the end, you're just another wounded soul, and here you're not a conqueror. You're just someone we're going to help. Humanity doesn't abandon anyone, not even the worst of enemies. The words hit Strix like a blow to the chest. He had expected death, or at the very least captivity, but not this. The humans, these fragile creatures, were offering him something he had never encountered in his entire life: mercy. It was not a mercy born of weakness, but of strength, a strength that the Xenthari could never understand. As the human finished his work, he stood and extended a hand. Strix could do nothing but stare at it, unsure of what to make of this gesture. To accept would be to admit defeat, to acknowledge that his power was gone, that humanity had defeated him in a way that no alien weapon ever could. But deep down, Strix knew that he had no choice. The universe had changed, the humans had found him, and they had shown him something that no other race had ever shown: the power of compassion, the strength to survive, and the unwavering belief that no one was beyond redemption. Strix took the human's hand, and for the first time in his life, he felt the weight of his pride lift. He was no longer a conqueror. He was something else, something human. And for the first time, Strix was ready to fight for a future that did not belong to the Xenthari, but to the humans who had shown him mercy.